The rain was relentless that night, pouring down in heavy sheets against the grocery store windows, blurring the world outside in streaks of gray. Inside, the harsh fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting cold reflections on the polished linoleum floor. A man, weary yet determined, pushed a small cart toward the checkout line. His clothes clung damply to his skin, and his eyes carried the weight of too many sleepless nights. His name was Daniel, a single father who had been fighting battles. The world couldn't see battles with bills, with time, with loneliness, and most of all, with the fear of failing his little girl. Tonight, though, he wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about the box of cereal she loved, the milk she needed for school mornings, and the hope that he could stretch the last $20 in his wallet just far enough to keep her world bright for another week. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of small moments to change lives, please take a moment to like this video. Comment your thoughts, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to Heartful Stories. Together, we can remind the world that compassion still exists. As Daniel unloaded the few items from his cart onto the conveyor belt, his gaze settled on the young cashier at the register. She couldn't have been older than 22, maybe 23, but her face was pale and drawn, as though the simple act of standing there was demanding too much from her. Daniel noticed her hands first. They were trembling, not with the subtle, fleeting kind of nervousness that passes unnoticed, but with a visible, almost painful shake that made it hard for her to grip the scanner. She dropped a can of soup, flinched, and quickly apologized, though no one had said a word. The customers behind him shuffled impatiently, checking their phones, sighing under their breath. But Daniel found himself staring, curious and strangely concerned. There was something haunting about the way she kept forcing a smile. It's a brittle mask that cracked at the edges with each scanned item. For weeks, Daniel had been living on autopilot. Every day, a blur of work and parenting duties. Yet, something about the girl's shaking hands cut through his exhaustion. It was as if his heart, despite all its burdens, recognized another soul weighed down by something unseen. When she finally met his eyes just for a second, it was like looking into a mirror. Same weariness. The same attempt to hold it. Altogether, he asked her softly, almost instinctively, why her hands were shaking. The question hung in the air, breaking through the sterile monotony of the checkout line. She froze, her lips parting slightly, her eyes widening as if she had been caught in a storm she was trying desperately to hide. For a moment, Daniel regretted asking, afraid he had intruded. But then her voice came, quiet and trembling like her hands, and what she said would leave him utterly speechless. She admitted she hadn't eaten a full meal in 3 days. The shaking wasn't nerves, it was hunger, exhaustion, and the heavy toll of trying to work double shifts while caring for her younger siblings at home. Her parents had walked out years ago, leaving her to become both sister and parent, provider, and protector before she was even old enough to rent a car. Every paycheck she earned disappeared into rent, school supplies, and electricity bills, and sometimes there wasn't enough left for her to buy food for herself. She smiled weakly, as if to downplay it, but her voice cracked on the last word, betraying just how close she was to breaking. Daniel stood there, his groceries forgotten for a moment. The world seemed to fall silent around them, the buzzing lights, the impatient customers. The rain outside, all of it fading as he absorbed the weight of her confession. It hit him like a tidal wave because he knew that feeling. He knew the hollow ache of sacrifice, of going without so someone else could have enough. He had done it countless times for his daughter, skipping meals so she wouldn't have to, working late shifts that tore at his health just to keep a roof over their heads. Hearing this young woman's story was like reopening an old wound. one that never fully healed. Asterisk, as she handed him the receipt. Her hands shook harder, and Daniel felt a surge of something deep but empathy. Part pain, part fierce compassion. He couldn't walk away, not this time. He asked her name, quietly, gently. And then he did something that would set off a chain of events neither of them could have imagined. Asterisk Daniel began stopping by the store more often, sometimes just to pick up something small, sometimes just to make sure she was there. Her name was Emily. She was cautious at first, embarrassed even, afraid he saw her as weak. But Daniel never judged. Instead, he shared bits of his own story, how he had lost his wife when their daughter was barely 3, how the world seemed to demand more of him than he had to give, and how the love for his little girl kept him standing when everything else tried to knock him down. Slowly, trust grew between them, the fragile kind born of shared scars. Asterisk Emily's siblings became part of the story too. Daniel learned about them in quiet pieces, about the little brother who dreamed of becoming an artist, about the teenage sister struggling in school, and about the endless nights Emily spent worrying how to stretch her paycheck just far enough to keep them afloat. He recognized her exhaustion because it was his own, reflected back in another life. Asterisk weeks turned into months, and something remarkable began to happen. Daniel, who had long believed he had nothing left to give, found himself giving anyway. He started bringing extra bags of groceries, quietly slipping them into Emily's locker so she wouldn't have to feel ashamed. He helped her younger brother with art supplies, encouraged her sister with her studies, and slowly, steadily, a bond formed not of romance. Not at first, but of humanity. Of two souls carrying impossible loads who found strength in each other's presence. Asterisk, and for Emily, something inside her began to heal. For the first time in years, she felt she wasn't carrying her burden alone. The shaking in her hands grew less frequent, replaced by a newfound steadiness that came not from rest, but from hope. Asterisk, the story built quietly, like a sunrise breaking after a long night. Daniel's daughter adored Emily, and Emily's siblings adored Daniel. What began as chance a single question at a checkout line evolved into a makeshift family, a patchwork of broken pieces coming together to form something whole. There were struggles of course, nights when bills loomed too large, mornings when exhaustion threatened to undo them, but together, they carried each other. And in that carrying, they discovered strength they hadn't known they possessed. Asterisk, the moment that sealed it all came one evening when Emily confessed that she had once considered giving up. The weight had been too heavy, the nights too long. But Daniel's kindness, that simple act of noticing her shaking hands, had reminded her she wasn't invisible. He had given her a reason to keep fighting. And as tears slipped down her cheeks, Daniel realized that in helping her, he had also healed a part of himself he thought was gone forever. Asterisk, sometimes. The most extraordinary changes begin in the most ordinary place as a grocery store, a rain-soaked night, a trembling hand. And sometimes, a single act of compassion can alter the course of 2 lives forever. Asterisk, if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of kindness, please don't just watch in silence. Like this video, share it with someone who might need hope today. Subscribe to Heartwarming Stories and leave a comment below. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who may need them most. Asterisk, special request to comment. Share a moment when a small act of kindness changed your life. You never know who your words might inspire. Asterisk.